How many, on a percentage of sightings, how many are actually real and how many, because you always hear the old swamp gas thing?
No, well, I would say reported UFOs, a large number, or a large percentage, I couldn't guess what percentage, just weather balloons or normal phenomena. We're not really interested in the ones that can be mistaken for something. The ones that I'm interested in are the ones that can't be mistaken for anything but a UFO. Like a ship lands, an entity gets out, he talks to you, he invites you in the craft, you go in, you have an experience, you get certain information from him. This happens so many times, and it's happening so often now, that we don't have to worry about, well, is that a UFO or not? Is that a weather balloon? That's unimportant.
When you say it happens so often, like what?
Well,
a week you hear of one?
Well, about 3 years ago, there were 2,000 good cases like this, and they're increasing now. I get information from all over the world, and every month we have several of these cases. Now, if you didn't know anything about UFOs, a lot of these cases would seem totally ridiculous. But after building up intelligence, this is just like working as a detective or an intelligence officer in the military, you build up your intelligence. And then when you get a report, you know what to look for, you know the questions to ask, and you see that these things form a pattern, and you begin to recognize the puzzle pieces. Years ago, you know, it took me a long time to fit a piece into the puzzle. Now, each piece makes sense. It goes into the puzzle. Of course, every once in a while you get a piece that makes absolutely no sense at all. We don't know whether that's a hoax, invalid, or whether it's a new piece of data that we don't know how to use yet.
What's an example of somebody that, what did they see when they got on the ship, or went for a ride, or whatever they do when they get on there?
Give you the case of Sergeant Moody. This was 2 years ago at Alamogordo, New Mexico. He was out watching a small meteor shower, all by himself in the desert, standing outside his car, when a disc-shaped ship came down and landed in front of the car. He was scared to death, but he couldn't move. An entity about 4.5 feet tall, humanoid, got out, walked over to him, and touched him. When the entity touched him, Sergeant Moody lost all fear. He then communicated, not verbally, but telepathically. This is 90% of the cases, the communication is said to be telepathic. The entity took him on board the ship, and Moody asked to see the drive unit. He was taken down below and shown the drive unit. The way he described the drive unit was what I would have expected. It made sense from what I already knew. Now, Sergeant Moody was very, very reluctant to tell anybody about this. He found that he had to contact somebody, and he contacted APRO, the Aerial Phenomenal Research Organization in Tucson, Arizona. He is still keeping this covered up. I mean, he's in the Air Force. He's a career Air Force sergeant, and he doesn't want the information out. Since there are a number of Sergeant Moody's in the Air Force, we're not really giving away anything by saying that.
Would seem to me, if you had come across a thing like that, you'd be scared to death after it happened.
He was, but when the first thing that he said in the interview was that when the entity touched him, he lost all fear. That's a puzzle piece. That's one we know. We know that that happens time and time again. So this is not surprising.
Another thing that I'm wondering about, if these people run into these different UFOs, I imagine each one is a little different, right?
Oh,
each story?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, where are they coming from? What planets? Or we don't know.
Well, first let me say that 60% of the humanoids reported that are occupants are approximately 4.5 feet tall. They look like us. They have 5 fingers on their hand. They are obviously not from Earth. If one got on the bus, you'd know that he wasn't from around here. 14% look enough like us that they could get on the bus and never be noticed. Then the rest of the percentage varies from 3 feet tall to up to 15, 18 feet tall. They're a very wide range. We suspect that they come from several hundred different places in this galaxy and possibly outside the galaxy. Now, the question is always asked, well, how can they do this and why don't they leave traces behind? Well, they do leave traces behind. There are over 1,000 landing trace evidence cases now where landing traces have been examined. There are 80,000 bits of evidence in Northwestern University's computer. They can now tell when a ship lands. They can measure the tripod marks or whatever marks it makes on the ground. From those marks, they can tell what the ship looks like. They know what the witness is going to say before they interview the witness, simply by measuring the marks. There's enough data now.
Now, who are we saying does all this research?
Well, this is CUFOS, Center for UFO Studies. This is headed by J. Allen Hynek.
It's nothing to do with the government, right?
No. J. Allen Hynek was the consultant on the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is professor of astronomy at Northwestern University. He was chief consultant, civilian consultant to the Air Force from 1948 to 1968. He's the dean of ufology in the United States. Now, there is another aspect to the UFO that, since we don't have too much time on the program, I'll just jump right into the reason why these things are elusive, why they leave these traces and then we can't track them down. They not only come from different places in space, from our point of view, they come from different places in time. That is, there are more dimensions to time that are recognized by our contemporary society. Physics, our modern physics, is recognizing this. It is definitely recognizing that there are more dimensions in time than we recognize normally. It's not at all off the wall for a physicist, an orthodox physicist in a university today, to recognize the fact that the dimensions, the normal 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, is not a correct solution to our universe. And so the fact that these ships travel not only in space but also in time is
saying from the future back. I mean,
well,
coming from the
no,
future.
it's more than that. Just to say time has a past and future is not enough. You have to say that time has a field similar to space. If we can move 3-dimensionally in space, we can move 3-dimensionally in time. And the craft have been photographed in such a way that evidence indicates that they are time travelers, that they are able, as far as we're concerned, to travel the entire width of the galaxy in 0 time, as far as we're concerned. So we don't have the limitation of thinking, well, if light goes at 186,000 miles per second, it's going to take forever, 100,000 years to get across the galaxy. We don't even have to worry about them coming from another galaxy if this theory is correct. And there are a lot of people now that are supporting this theory, that these craft are, you might say, materializing in our space just the way this television picture materializes in your living room.
See, at the same time, there are other channels. I mean, you have to face that at this station, that there are other channels.
We didn't know.
And, well, I thought you might, but we're sitting here, say, on one channel,
right.
And there are other realities,
so in other words,
other fields of space-time.
One sighting, say, in Arizona from one period of time.
Well, say this
and there
this
would be
thing.
Another one in New York. Say,
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that something appears into our reality and disappears. This is so often reported in a UFO sighting. What's happening is simply switching channels. It's coming into our channel of existence, if you will, and then leaving it.
I promise the phone callers we're going to get to you, but first we got to take a break and we'll be back. We're talking about UFOs, a lot of questions, a lot of calls. We're going to get them right after this.